Alright guys, Hatchcraft again, so I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far with roster drama continuing to go down ahead of the Esports World Cup. Big questions being raised on what might happen after the World Cup going into next season for Black Ops 6. Lots of questions on the New York Subliners, what could happen with their roster, especially considering the second place of the World Championship arguably isn't enough given they changed their roster after last year's championship victory. Kenny also with some thoughts on Dashy, certainly after the whirlwind they've been through as a teammate duo over the last several years. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I greatly appreciate it. First of all, let's talk about the whole Subliners thing, because yesterday there were some questions. What's going on with Rostermania as it stands? Because definitely this year is probably not going to be as crazy as last year on paper. I mean, last year was insane. Everyone blew it up. Sure, everyone knew within reason that Prob was going to go to Optic. Eventually, Kenny goes over there. Drazah was going to FaZe. Subliners won champs and blew it up. Like, there was lots of things going on. Okay, not quite a blur, but you know what I mean. Dropped Priester, brought Sib into the mix. So as Jake Hell says, the Rostermania has potential to be wild, but the World Cup's getting in the way. Now, there's two ways to look at this, right? Because typically, around about now, we would have rumours as to, oh, this team's making a change, this team's making a change, what's happening with FaZe, this type of stuff. The issue is that they've got to use the same roster for the World Cup. So, well, within reason, like the top teams have to, because pretty sure the roster deadline was one day after champs. So, for the teams that were at champs, their roster there is going to be their roster within reason at the World Cup, unless they went out on Friday and could make a change before, although we've not really heard rumours to that effect quite as of yet. So, assuming it's the case that the top teams are going to the World Cup with the same roster, what does that mean? If you're FaZe, let's say FaZe turn up to the World Cup and win it, right? I don't think that's going to happen based on what happened at champs, and I don't imagine their team chemistry is where they'd want it to be, but they've probably got to turn up with the same roster of 4, which means that if they win, do they think, well, you know what, let's run it back anyway because we just won this, or do they think, you know what, champs was what really mattered, so yeah, we underperformed there, and that's a bad news, and therefore we've got to blow it up anyway. So I wonder where the teams will look at this, because it could either mean the teams blow it up more, or it means the teams blow it up less, because FaZe have a chance to like prove that they're actually still going to be coherent, but look, we'll see if that's true in a couple of weeks time in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And as Crone says, I'm thinking the opposite. Optic aren't changing, that's half the hype gone, which is true to be fair. Like if Optic don't make a change, that's one of the big talking points of the off-season. Scrap's locked down, Hydra's locked down, and, you know, the FaZe boys are locked down on paper. I think really it's the FaZe thing, right? If FaZe make a move, then everything is up for grabs. And I think even still on this New York Subliner situation, right? Because last year, they won champs, they made a change. Now, in that environment, Optic were clearly upgrading, FaZe were trying to upgrade, obviously Toronto were trying to upgrade as well with Envoy for Hixie, so the Subliners felt they needed to try and pack a punch if they wanted to win, and maybe in hindsight they were proved correct in some sense. And, you know, do they win the World Championship this year with Priester? I don't think so. Do they win an event this year with Priester? You know, maybe, but I think Sib was really, really good at the end of the season, right, when they became an actual competitive force. So that's the discussion here, really, and as Jake Hell says, they could obviously blow it up, and that's the hope I'm clinging on to. Optic winning champs brought it down a notch. Scrap and Hydra aren't even free agents, right? A buyout price for either of them would be insane. I hope something crazy happens with them, but who knows? And then Jake Hell says this: I think Hydra's extension option is an expensive one, so it is possible that Cloud9 don't want to pick it up. So raising questions on whether Subliners will actually keep the roster they have, or they'll say, you know what, Paco, it's been a good ride. If somebody else wants you, they can have you. But the reality is that's probably not going to be happening. And Jack Etienne actually comments on the Reddit, so owner of Cloud9, and effectively now owner of the New York Subliners, and says the following: they will be, okay, hey guys, history linked to this post is wildly inaccurate. That's okay, misunderstanding happens. But to clear up this concern, I can tell you that we're taking the option to extend all contracts on our COD team. So they're extending their roster. Now, does this mean that necessarily the team won't make a move? Well, that is a question. Sib and Kismet were already locked in, I believe, for next season. They're going to pick up the options, it seems, on Hydra and Skies to ensure that they will stay as the team of 4. But look, just because they have all the options picked up and therefore that those guys are locked into their roster, doesn't necessarily mean that that's absolutely going to be the team of 4 for next season, depending what happens elsewhere. You know, let's say FaZe blow it up and decide to make a move, and then they come knocking on the door for one of the players on the Subliners, then of course there's potentially still a deal to be done. But yeah, look, Cloud9 are saying, okay, New York Subliners, Cloud9, whatever you want to say, we're not even really sure what they're going to be called next season as it stands, which is still very unclear at the moment. But, you know, they're extending the options on the players, and therefore it seems to be the intention of Cloud9 / New York Subliners to maintain this roster of 4 next season. Wouldn't be a bad idea, I don't think. Obviously, they're a great team. The question, I guess, is whether they're going to extend their coaching staff as well, because there were some rumours yesterday as to the fact that Cinder and Daryl are kind of in the dark as to what happens post Esports World Cup. And obviously, if things go crazy there and some big teams bomb out early, then you might see some serious blow-it-up moments after that going into Black Ops 6, at which point, of course, Subliners, Cloud9 could potentially get involved. Not really sure where this guy came up with the idea that aBeZy and Dashie are going to be on the move, but look, aBeZy might in a wild world. Dashie, well, they're not going to get rid of him unless Dashie somehow gets an offer elsewhere that he wants to take, but he's not going to do that, is he? So not really sure where that idea came from. But a few interesting clips to share for you guys on, well, the Optic Championship victory, and really just some comments from Kenny on the whole Dashie thing, and some other interesting comments as well, really, because Optic, they've done what they did after Major 3 that they won, but they've taken it next level this time, right? So after Major 3 that they won, they did, I wouldn't want to call it a media tour precisely, but, you know, they were doing every piece of content under the sun. All the podcasts were coming through, all the process episodes are coming through, and obviously they're running it back again after their World Championship win. They got the game chat here with obviously the entire team, with JP, with Karma there as well. I did see some people joking around on the Reddit as well that, you know, imagine Optic knock out the Minnesota Rocker at the World Cup. Obviously Accuracy, who we're pretty sure was involved with Optic's run to some degree, was, you know, would potentially be knocked out of the tournament by Optic, and obviously they'd think, oh, yeah, that's unfortunate, Lamar, after all that you may or may not have done for the team during that run. There were some funny clips as well where kind of Shotzi was talking about Karma just absolutely shredding the boys in the warm-up scrims before they played their final championship day. But a couple of clips here. Hex as well commenting on the state of the event itself, because the drama on the whole Optic crowd, Optic home bias cheese, it hasn't gone away, and I'm surprised that it hasn't. I thought, to be honest, this would be a talking point for a day or two, and then everyone would kind of move on. But no, it's continued over the last few days. Hex felt the need to address it kind of directly, talking about why, you know, they could have made it a proper Optic major, an Optic home stand or whatever if they'd have wanted to, but, you know, they kept it reasonably neutral in the way that it was set up. Also, one of the other things I was talking about was that it's not like it was at Esports Stadium Arlington where Optic will have the biggest and best practice room. Now, you might think this isn't a big deal, but, you know, it was a talking point at the Optic majors that Optic would always get the biggest room with the pool table in or whatever, the table tennis table that have all the space, and, you know, their competitors would be put into the other kind of practice rooms, which would just be, you know, smaller or, you know, problematic in some way. Whereas at the World Championship, it wasn't like that. It's not like Optic had the best room or anything. They were in the same setup as all the other teams with the same like black curtain between them and this type of stuff. So Optic, sure, they brought out the Dynasty, they had the drums going, but all things considered, I think they kept it relatively neutral. And, you know, Hex is kind of talking about the fan base and some other factors here in play as well, but also Kenny's words on his history with Dashie.
How does it feel come full circle team with Bruce? Yeah. I mean, now that's pretty dope. But like I said at the beginning of this year, like, the Bruce is one person I was definitely excited for the team with again. Just because I feel like our first one didn't go as planned, obviously. But like I said, I mean, I don't know if people thought I was capping, but I said it. I have no complaints with Bruce at all since seeing with him again. Guy is gross.
For Major 4, and I know you guys don't want to talk about the. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter now. Where they placed 12th,
we can talk about it.
where they placed 12th, and we got out of the running, like that event, we also put in our hat for. Okay, we didn't have to. Okay, the same way that no other team had to raise their hand to run it, the same way that the team that was awarded that event didn't, we still raised our hand because I wanted Call of Duty to be in a good place. I wanted to hold up and go above and beyond our end of the fucking bargain, our side of the partnership. I wanted to make sure that it was a good one. And what happened? We had a closed event, right, Matt? I'd make that bigger. We had a closed event. What am I looking at, Matt? Yeah, the Stage 4 Major, and then Call of Duty League playoffs, and then Call of Duty was... Okay. Half of the viewership happened when we came in 12th place, okay? Would it have been different if it would have been in a live event thrown by Optic? If Major 4 would have been the Optic Major, as it should have been, or as it could have been, that's one thing. But they wanted to give us champs because of obvious reasons, right? And you guys saw those reasons this past weekend. No good deed goes unpunished, okay? Now, I understand what they're saying. Were the drums necessary? No. Would we have brought them to places like, I don't know. What I will say is that it just I've been a little bit like angry at at what's been spinning off, and it's all distractions, and that's why I haven't said anything publicly. That's why I didn't put this text out publicly. I could have gotten mad impressions off for that. You know what I'm saying? That's the name of the game. But I didn't want no retweets because I didn't want to draw attention to negative shit. I didn't want to draw attention away from the fact that these men have won a world championship, one of them for the first time ever. We did a good thing. It was the best Call of Duty tournament that this esport has ever seen, period. By far, okay? The green wall is big, okay? And I find it hilarious that people get mad when our fans, when the green wall leaves, when we're no longer in the tournament. They want them to stick around when it's beneficial for them. They call them fake Call of Duty fans because they don't stick around to watch other teams that aren't Optic. I don't go to any Rockies. I don't go to any Clippers. I don't go to any Spurs games. Do you know why? I am not a fan of those fucking teams. I couldn't give a fuck less. So for people to be mad when our fans leave the venue, when that goes, and then when people tell me, yo, you should encourage them to stay, and I do, but maybe I shouldn't, because why the fuck is it okay? Like when Scrappy was fucking winning, what was the green wall doing? They were cheering for fucking Scrappy. When somebody was playing against FaZe, what was the crowd doing? Cheering for the team that wasn't FaZe. That's cool. It wasn't too loud then. It wasn't a benefit to that one team, but it's a benefit when it's us because it's louder, sure.
He's spin. He cooking.
The fact of the matter is, it's
interesting to hear Kenny follow up on this, right? Because he made a similar statement a couple of weeks ago now, whatever it was, when I think it was maybe post Major 3, pre Major 4, something like that, when he was kind of discussing his history with Dashy, because they team with each other, if you guys aren't aware, back on Optic Gaming Los Angeles. So still Optic, technically, but not really Optic, as we full well know as it was at the time, back in Modern Warfare 19 in the 2020 season. And yeah, those guys, they got along outside of the game as friends, but the problem was for them is that in the game there were, well, a couple of issues really. It was mainly, work ethic related stuff. We've always talked about it with Dashy, and there were problems that season. I think Dashy was in a tricky spot that year because he wanted to go to Optic, as in real Optic, because he was on Optic the previous year. But unfortunately for Dashy, he kind of got convinced that OGLA was the way to go, and having signed the contract, there was no way to therefore leave and go to the Chicago Huntsmen. Next year he was able to join Optic Chicago as it became, but he was in a frustrated spot. He had to run an SMG for a time because Slasher was there as the main AR, and it all kind of fell apart. So that first time maybe had created some concerns for Kenny as to whether Dashy would be the right guy to team with, but obviously this year has been, he called him earlier in the year an S-tier teammate, and says that, it's been, they kind of come full circle in a way from where they were a few years ago to where they are today, hoisting the World Championship trophy between them, right? But yeah, very much interested your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Just quickly, before we close out the video, here's some scrim bucks to go through. Again, another set of scrims between Vegas and the Ravens. So again, kind of like the only two teams that are actually putting in the practice right now, which is kind of interesting, just because, it's only a couple of weeks until the World Cup. You might think other teams will come back, but more than likely teams are taking a good break, and I think for good reason, to be fair, especially the teams that made it to champs. Like, they grinded a lot of this game going into champs. The teams that didn't make champs, they obviously would have, taken their foot off the gas, made some roster changes, as for example Ravens have done, as have Vegas, but that was not necessarily, I don't think, an intentional change. Johnny's stepping away to do with like a health issue for a little while, so that's what's happening there. And but yeah, the Ravens, they won this scrim set last night for sure. I mean, it was 250 to 151 on the map 1 here. Map 2 was 250-114 to the Ravens. Then you had 250-184, 250-237 to Ravens, 250 to 127 here. And then the controls, actually 2 of them went to Vegas, 1 of them went to Ravens. But yeah, in these hard points, the new Ravens team look looking good. Now, I guess it depends on your perspective on how good this Vegas team is, especially with Fame now on the roster, as to, you know, what's going on there, whether they're going to be as good as they were with Johnny, are they even that good in the first place, these sort of questions, or whether Beans is like the truth, right? And I think Beans is great, and I think he should improve the Ravens. But, yeah, definitely interesting to keep an eye on here, that these scrim sets over the last couple of days have definitely favoured the Carolina Ravens over what's happened with Vegas, at least so far. So very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Just one final thing here on Kenny. COD Champs career card. 2 rings now for Kenny, 1 with Thieves, 1 with Optigo for the last couple of years. His 7th attended as he did this time, average placing at 4th. Series win-loss is actually really impressive, 27-9. Finals appearances 4. I mean, 4 Champs Grand Finals appearances, converted half of them, dropping a 1.07 overall. Not bad in terms of prize money earned of all the years that he's been around, but hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.